Welcome to the EZCODE Projects Series Toaster video number 7. In this video, we'll begin our journey to build an automated order generator to feed our hungry toasters. If you have not done so already, please complete the previous EZCODE Projects Toaster Series videos. Those of you that have done so may continue. Remember that all you have to do is type as I do. Just pause the video or slow down the speed when needed to catch up. Understanding comes later. Let's begin. Let's open our VS Code and Toaster project. So open a VS Code, I hit the Explorer window, open folder, projects, EZCODE, Toaster. That's the directory. I have a few files open. I'm going to close those for now and just leave the menu open here on the left. So in the last video, we completed the build code so that we no longer need an actual toaster in the view HTML, just like we did for the toaster. So let's create a new file called orders. Now in the VS Code Explorer under source directory, once again, same thing here, we're gonna right click, new file, and we're gonna call it orders.js. Okay, so what do you think has to happen next? What do we do when we create a new file? Remember, we always have to load that file, and what tells the browser to load it? The view HTML. So let's go to the view HTML, and we need another script tag. So down here, it's going to say, hey, load my file, please. So I'm just going to copy paste that one, and we're going to just move over here and say, okay, orders.js. So this just has to match. And just once again to go over this, this is a source is a file path. It's the same thing as saying this is how you navigate file paths, but it's at the same level as the view HTML. So we can just address it locally and say, give me this file. So you can see we're loading the code.js, the toaster.js, and the orders.js now. Okay, that's good. So now that we have that, we have to do one more thing first, and that is take your orders.js and let's put it right above the toaster.js. And there is some rhyme and reason to the orders coming in here. Toaster is going to try and load something that may not exist yet. So we want to load the orders and then load the toaster. So make sure you have it in this order: code, orders, toaster. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this work that we have up here. And now let's open the orders file again, and we'll create a module like we did in the EZCODE, or the EZCODE module. So we're going to do const, and we're going to say capital orders equals, and now here we're going to create just another immediately invoked function. So to do that, first we have to create a function, just to go over this again. Right? This is the simplest function you can think of. There it is right there. Now, what we want to do first is we want to encapsulate this function in parentheses, like this. Now that this is encapsulated in parentheses, it's like we're making an unnamed function. There's no name to this function. We're just saying, hey, this thing right here, we're going to use it to encapsulate work inside of the curly braces. And so it's immediately invoked because of these two pieces right here. So this expression will run in the parentheses first, and then it'll get called. So that's why it'll immediately return whatever we return from this function. And if we have no return statement, then orders will just become undefined. But either way, this is, as soon as this file is loaded, this is going to run. This is super important for encapsulation. So now that we have this piece here, I'm just going to put a semicolon on it, so you can just do it in line like this if you'd like. And then the next thing, I'm just going to remove this space and go inside the curly braces and hit enter. This is the shape. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. This is the shape of our immediately invoked function. So here we go. We got orders, function, everything's going to go inside of this. And so now we're going to start making things. So we got a lot of work here to do for the orders. All right, let's see what we're going to do here. So At the top of the file, we're going to have a few, let's see, we're going to have a constant here, and it's going to be called interval time, and we'll just say 1000. So make sure you type that out. And then notice the difference here. We're going to make a variable, which means it's not going to be constant like the one above. This next one is going to change. And so that's why we use the keyword let. So we're going to let interval, make sure you got them capitalized here so we reference them later, and the initial value of interval. So we want an initial interval or an initial value, but I don't want that value to be really anything meaningful. So this is where we use the word null, so the type null here. So we're just going to say, hey, look, we're going to assign interval, and interval is going to be null to begin. And the same thing with notify. We'll notify, and we're going to be null, and then a couple spaces. Now we're going to make a function. So we're going to make a function here, and it's going to be called listen. Again, function. We're going to pass in one argument. It's going to be a callback, which is in JavaScript, that's the lingo for this is going to be another function. So we're going to take, our function is going to take another function. And then inside of the curly braces, we're going to use these two variables, and we don't have to use let anymore because they're already declared, but now we can use them and assign new values. So we're going to say notify is equal to the callback. So we take the callback and we just want to label it something that we're going to know how to use it later on. So this callback is passed in as an argument, so it's only known in the braces. But now that we assigned it to notify, we assigned the reference to it. Now it's in this scope, so we can use it later on in another function. So we're just going to enter, and we're going to say interval, which is the one from above, and we're going to say set interval, which is a function from JavaScript. So it's like the set timeout, but this one doesn't wait for a period of time and then run. This one will run incrementally. So if we say every interval time, let's say 1,000. In fact, let's just go in here and we're going to say, we're going to use a method that we haven't created yet, but it's going to be called random. And now we're going to put our interval time. Now that we have our interval time here, so we're going to pass in, just like in set timeout, we're going to pass in a method. We haven't created this yet, and we're going to give it a time. So if you remember what set timeout did, the first argument was a function, and the second one was time. Same thing with set interval. There's no difference there. I just want to display that here. So we have our listen, we have our notify, which is the reference to the callback passed in. The interval is going to be set, and we're going to enter. We're going to see what this does, so don't worry about wondering what it does here. Now we need to build our random function that we have here. So we're going to say function random. It doesn't have any arguments. Open the curly braces. So easy to make functions. And we're going to say, you know what? Create order. Okay. So what we're going to do here is, now I'm going to reference another function that we haven't made yet, although we've made it in other series, in project series. So it's a good one to always remember. But we need to randomize a selection of Booleans, because we're going to say, should we create an order? And that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to say, we're going to answer that question. We're going to say randomize, which is just a generic function we haven't created yet. It takes an array, and it'll randomly select values from this array that we pass in. So we'll say, should we create an order? True. And then let's say false, false, and false. So this means a lot of times it's going to randomly select false, because we've heavily weighted it towards don't make orders. And every now and again we said, so, you know, it'll randomly select true sometimes. So this is a way that we can weight different values. Now we haven't created randomize yet, but we will. So let's go to the next line, and we're going to say console log so make sure you spell this one out, clock tick. That's all. We just want to make sure that the clock is ticking. And then we're going to say, we're going to create an if, and we're going to say if create order, curly braces. Okay, so if this is true, that's all the if does. It says if this is true, it's going to break into it. If it's not, it won't happen. So when it's true, we're going to use the callback from above. This is now where we can reference notify, and we can pass in. We're going to make an array of objects. So I'm just going to do this here. You can do the same if you want. Put the semicolon before we start making things in here. And we're going to say value 4 on the first object and value 2 on the second object. So all we're doing here is we're taking the callback that we were given from another file, and we're passing in, right now we're just passing in some static orders. If this is true. Okay, so we have that ready. This random method is now right here. It's going to run every 1 second because that's our interval. And it's going to randomly select if it's going to create something or not. Okay, so now we're going to open up and we're going to make our randomize function up here that just selects an array. And this is a great little function. Something to keep in memory, randomize, and it takes an array, and we have the curly braces, and this function just returns a selection from the array. So just like we would do this and say, we can say array index 9, array index 2, array index. Well, inside of this, we're gonna use a little bit, oops, let's make sure we take care of that. So inside of this, we're going to select the index. And I'm just going to type it up here so we can look at it for a minute. So the first piece of this is we're going to take math floor. And then inside of this, we're going to pass in math random. Like this times the array.length. Let's go over this here in a second. So we're taking randomly select something from the array length. The math floor is going to be, let's just go over to the, oh, I got my files messed up here. We'll just explore this real quick. We just need a console. So inspect, we've got a console, great. And we can say, what does math floor even do? Right, we can always test this out. It gives us nan, which is not a number. Okay, well that's odd. So let's pass something in here. Let's say 3. It gives us 3 back. What about 3.3? Oh, it gave us 3 back again. What about 3.3? Blah, blah, blah. What about, we'll go pi, 1415. What about, okay, so it's taking a decimal number and it's just giving us back the left side of the decimal. Okay, so that's what math floor is doing. So what's math random do? Math random. Oh, it gives us a decimal. That's odd. Look at that one. How would we get an index by 0.9 or 0.3? Okay, so now let's make an array. 1, 2. I don't like to use digits here because it just gets confusing. Let's just do A, B, C, and D. Okay, so we have an array. How many items are in there? There's clearly 4. And what are their indexes? The A is 0. We always start with 0 with the arrays. So it's the index to address and find it is 0, 1, 2, 3. That gets a little bit confusing sometimes because there's 4 items. There's always however many items in there. So if we said array.length, got it. It's 4. Okay, so we were taking what? We were taking math random and we were timesing it by the array length. What's that give us? Okay, well, it gives us 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's get a 3. Come on. Oh, 0. We got that. And we got a 3. Okay. So we can randomly select. Well, we don't want all these other digits. And that's what the math floor does. So the math, now there's nothing in your way now. We can just say, okay, well, give us that. And we'll go back over here and we'll say math floor. And now we can see these math functions weren't created to do this. They're like little pieces of Lego that we can stick together to do what we wish. And so here, this is a fantastic one to find random indexes of an array. It's always limited and bounded by the array length. And so we have math floor, math random. This is just a great one to learn. And I just wanted to really cement that in there, because now we can just take this and we're going to stick it in here. And again, that's going to result in 0, 1, 2, or 3. And that's how we get our randomizer. So just get rid of this here. Let me just make sure I didn't do any typos. Times array length, that looks great. Now the last thing we need to do is, this is not a class, so this is why I often call this a module. Sometimes I call it a service. This function, and let me just go over there real quick. Let's just make, we'll just get rid of this here, and let's make a function. Function, we'll say function 1. That's getting in the way there. Let's just do it this way. Function 1, okay. What did I do? Oh, I forgot my, okay, function 1, I forgot about that. Now, you can see we already got undefined. What does that mean? So if I call 1 and I hit enter, it's returning undefined. It knows it's there. There is a function, but the function's returning nothing. And that's the default return of any JavaScript function. So now if I made another one, function 2, and I said return, let's just do butter, and I did that one, 2 returns butter, 2 returns butter, because we said return something. So if I went in there and I said, well, 2 is going to return undefined. Okay, 2 is undefined. That's right. This is what it normally will return. It's like a secret statement that's already in every function, unless you override it. Now go back over to our order system. Now we know what's going on. We know what our math floor randomizer is doing. And we know that here we have to return something from this function, or it's going to be undefined. So let's return our listen. All right, we're just going to put a semicolon down there. So return listen. What's listen? This one. So whoever is going to consume orders.listen, they better pass in a callback. So let's save our work. There's our open dot there. Save our work. Let's save our work and go to the code.js file. Here we are here. And what are we going to do now? We're going to delete the static orders array. So let's just scroll up here, and we're going to get rid of this one. So now it's going to be available through the global scope, because we're loading our HTML is loading the orders and the EZCODE, so they can talk to each other. And so orders is now this file. There it is right there. So let's go ahead, and we deleted that, and let's change the load function a little bit. So let's go back here to the orders, and we're going to say, because here, remember, we're not orders for each anymore. So we have to go down here and say, okay, let's do orders. Remember, listen, and we're going to pass in our function. So I'm going to do it like this. We'll just do orders for now, arrow function, and make your semicolon. So just like this, and then break into here. You can see this is the function we're passing in as the first argument. So it's going to run that for us. We're going to open this up, and we're going to say orders.map order. Actually, we don't need to do .map. Let's back this up for a minute, and we're just going to say orders.forEach order, and here is where we're going to do the enter, curly braces, enter, put the semicolon down here, and then we're just going to take these 3 things. Okay, I'm just leaving them there for a minute so we can look at them. And guess what? The last thing we have to do. So we have this whole system, and we weren't using the order before. Remember that? So I'm just going to delete this. And then what do we have left? We have the output. We have the orders listen. Now when the orders listen is called, it's going to invoke this function and pass in the orders. We can get away with this for now, being the same name because we're capital and lowercase, but we will change orders a little bit later on. But let's just keep it this way, keep it simple for now. So it passes in an array. Let's just look at that. The notify call, we pass in the callback, it gets referenced to notify, and then notify gets called down here, and it passes in whatever it needs to pass in, which in this case is just an array, just like we had before. That will come in, and then orders, we loop over it and say orders for each order, and then we say toaster. So create the toaster-nator, output the toaster-nator, and then toaster toast. But it doesn't know what that means because we need to pass in what the order was. So let's go ahead and copy that one. We're going to pass it into our toast method, which isn't ready for it yet, but we'll fix that in a minute. So go ahead and save this file. Make sure you got everything changed on here. Pause it, and then save it. So now let's correct our toast function in the toaster to accept an order. All right, so we're going to go our toaster.js file. Now we're going to find toast. So I think we kept that at the bottom. Yeah, there it is. And now what's it doing here? Well, we're passing in an order, so we know what that is, right? One order. Now we have to select between, because what are we doing here? We're taking either automated orders or we're taking manual user selected orders in the UI when they click on the levers. So we need to handle both. This was the value we were doing if it was manual. So we need to do this if this is undefined. So when toast is called, we're going to come in here and we're going to say, hey, you know what? Let's ask a question first. So JavaScript gives us a way to look if something is an array. And it's on the array class. So just like a class like we made, there's a method called isArray, and it's provided to us by JavaScript. So we could say, if order is an array, then we know you're passing in an order. So now we're going to use a ternary. So once again, just a ternary is super easy. We're going to say it's question mark, true, or semicolon or colon, false. So it means ask your expression, ask your question. If the question is true, or at least it results in a true value, a truthy value, then we're going to use this section. If it's false, we're going to use this section. So we can do whatever we want here. It's just a way of saying, if this, then this, or if true, here, if false, here. So nothing mysterious happening. This would be the first expression, and then we will put the question mark right here. So if you are an array, then it's just going to be order. Else, it's going to be this array setting. So this expression will result in either this one or this one being selected, knowing that when we pass in an order, we always want the automated section. When we don't, then it's a manual selection and we'll pass in this setting value. Okay, so that's all we have to do for our toast thing. Let's go up and remove, let's see, we're just going to do a quick cleanup here because we don't need all these console logs we got going on. So up here at connected callback, let's just go up here and we're going to remove this, get rid of the blank line. Now let's save the work, make sure all your tabs are saved, and load the view.html file in the browser. So I have my browser open, but we haven't loaded the file for the first time yet. So we'll go ahead and go in there, Projects Toaster, view.html, and we'll load it. Let's just see what happens. Okay, we got a clock ticking. That's good. So we already got that on there. Boom. We got some things going on. All right. Wow. There we go. We have our clock ticking, right? It ticks every time, whether it's true or false. So you can see how many times it's selecting false. And then when it selects true, we get toasters. And they go on there and they open up with the static values, right? There's only 2 each. And so 2 orders, 2 toasters. And here we go. So notice that every clock tick generates orders, or not every one. does. So let's wait a bit and see how far it goes. Yeah, it's going pretty far. Well, this is just too much toast. So what we need is a brain to coordinate between the incoming stream of orders and the toasters. Our central brain should assign orders to toasters as the orders come in. It should remove the orders when they are filled. Okay, well, we should do that. It should remove the toaster when each toaster orders are complete. It's definitely not doing that. There's too many toasters here, and they're in the way. So let's increase our brain a bit in the code.js file. Let's build a function that takes an array of orders and builds out a toaster to process the orders, then shut itself down. But first, let's slice up the orders array into bite-sized chunks we can give our function. Okay, so let's go back to our code.js file. That's the one that we're going to go to, and we're going to put some stuff at the top here. Okay, so I'm just going to go down here and make a little room, and I'm going to say limit 3. Right? We've just made a rule. We made a constant that says limit 3. So at least we have a value that we can reference instead of saying 3 everywhere. And then everywhere where this is, we can change that later on to be another number, and the code knows no difference. Okay, so we're going to do something very similar to what we did with the randomize. This is going to be perhaps a little cryptic, but if you get time, you can play with this one in the console just like we did for the randomizer. It's going to take an array just like the randomizer did. But in this case, we need to divide it. So if an array comes in, and we were say, okay, limit 3, we want to pass the orders to each toaster like this. 1, 2, 3. And then the next one would be 4, 5, 6. And the next one would be 7, 8, 9. And then I'm just going to surround this in array brackets again. That's what we want. We want to take this in here and we want to chunk it. We want to put it into chunks. And the chunks are going to be limited to 3 per chunk, where the ending array is going to be whatever's left. So that's what we're going to build here. So just keep this in mind. This is what we're doing. So this chunk function here is going to return, and we already know it's going to return something. And we need to do a bunch of work here. So we're going to say array from, so just type it out. That's okay. We're going to open up some curly braces here. And then inside of these curly braces, we're going to say length, and we're going to take math ceiling. So if floor was the rounded bottom of, say, 3.2 becomes 3, what would 3.6 become? It's going to become the ceiling. So, array.length divided by the limit. Okay, so now we can see some math coming in here. We're making an array based on, and we're giving its length, these limits here. Okay, now the second part of this is we're going to pass in, so I'm going to do a comma here. So let me just open this up so you can see that. Make sure you get this entire curly brace right. Length, colon, math ceiling, array.length, in parentheses, divided by the limit. And then the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to go next line and tab in, because the second argument is going to be an arrow function, and we're going to get 2 items out of this. This is going to look a little bit confusing, as these are kind of like, we just want the index that's coming off of this thing. So we're going to label the first argument V, and then the second one's going to be I for index, and we're just going to keep this super light. So these are the 2 arguments. The array from, if you pass something into it, it's already going to give us what these are, and we want the index of the items that are in the array. So in the parentheses after the arrow function, we're going to say array dot slice, which is just a method on the array, I times limit, comma, I times limit plus limit. Now, this is a fantastic function to check out and take apart in the console. We don't have that much time to go through in these videos, but this is a great one. Look at all the things that are happening here. And if you just wanted to see array from, let's just go to that real quick. And we're going to go array from MDN. There it is, array from JavaScript. Let's just read about it real quick. Array from static method creates a new shallow copy of the array instance from an iterable or array-like object. All right, that doesn't do too much, but here we go. We have array, you can see, array from, they're passing in their array, and then they're using the method. So they're taking the numbers and array from, it's going to already run through the stuff and then give the values back. So you can see it's saying x, that's the variable here of each one. So it's saying 1, okay, 1 plus 1. That's how, and then it'll give the value of what's returned. So that becomes 2, 4, and 6. We're doing something similar like this, and you can see array from takes an array, which will just return the array as an array. And then you can say array, and then you can do the mapping over the array that you want to do. I just wanted to show you this really quick. And the only thing that we're really doing is this is initially taking the array divided by the limit. So it's setting the length of 3 right here. And then it's saying, just go in there and slice me out. Well, let's just look at that too, because we can say, well, what is slice MDN? What does that do? Well, array slice. There we go. So here we go. Slice. We have a bunch of arguments going into the slice method, a bunch of examples. So here we can see that we have the start and the end of the slice. So let's just go back to what we were looking at, and we're saying array slice start at the index times the limit. So the first item of an array is an index 0. So 0 times any number is 0. Okay, well, what about 0 times limit here? Well, that would be 0 again, plus the limit, 3. So the first slice is going to be 0 as the start and 3 as the ending. All right, let's look at the second limit, or the second item of the array. It's going to be index 1. 1 times limit is 3, so that would start at 3. And then 1 times limit is 3, plus the limit, that's 6. Now we go 3 to 6. What about the next one? The next one, index of the array is 2. So we went 0, 1, now 2. 2 times limit is 6, so it starts at 6. And then 2 times limit plus limit. So that would be 2 times 3 is 6 plus limit is 9. So you can see how we're just iterating over it, and we're gobbling up what we need to chunk this array into the nested arrays. Remember, there was a nesting of these arrays. Okay, I think we explained enough. You can have some fun with that chunk though. Chunk it up. So what do we got to do now? Well, we need to go into orders listen. So we're going to scroll right up here, orders listen, and then we need to chunk orders. So let's go ahead and say, I'm going to get rid of this blank space and just enter and tab so we can look at this like I normally like to look at it. Orders listen, and here is where we're going to go and say, okay, so const chunked equals chunk orders. So that's all the orders coming in. And then we need to do, let's see, I'm looking at here, looking at my notes, making sure I got this thing right. So we have orders listen and we have chunked. Let's go ahead and console log chunked to see what that looks like. It's always good to look at what we're looking at here. And then let's see, we have orders for each. So everything's looking good here. let's just now go, let's save our work here, and we're going to go to orders real quick, and let's put in a few more. So we're going to go, I'm just going to grab this right here and go to the end of the curly braces. Oops, why is my keyboard not working? And I'm going to paste, okay? So we have 42, 42, 42. Now, let's take one off there and see what happens. Okay, so we have 42, 42, 4. Okay, with our commas separated in our array, go ahead and save this orders file. And let's go back to the browser. I'm going to get rid of that one. And we're just going to hit enter. We've got to wait for our clock tick before it did, boom, chunk. What a chunk. How did it chunk those up? So you can see it did the first initial 3, and then it did the 2, because we only had 5 orders. So that's good. It's working like we would like it. We need to, let's see, now we need to send those chunks to a toaster that can process the orders and then terminate itself. So let's work on that next. Now we create our new function and we'll name it initialize. Okay, so let's go back to, let's see, we're going to go back to our toaster. And then what are we doing here? We're doing a process order here where it's, nope, that's not it. Oh, maybe I'm in the wrong one. Let's go to the code.js file. This is the one that I wanted to do. So we need to do, we need to make a new method here. So we're just gonna, let's just leave the load function there for a second, and we're gonna come down here. How do we create a function? One of the ways anyways, initialize, and it's gonna take orders, okay? Nice and easy. There's our initialize function, pretty easy. Okay, so we need to do a few things, and we're gonna add a little bit more functionality while we're at it. So let's see, we need some of these pieces here, and then orders, we need them. So let's copy this 3 lines right here. Okay, we're going to stick it in our new order. And so the orders come in, and then we take the toaster document create element, we create the orders. Now, one thing we mentioned is we have to clean them up. So let's go down here. We're going to set another timeout because we need to know, hey, when do I clean this up? Timeout expects what? The first thing is the function. The second thing is the time. Okay, so that's why we just do arrow functions here. There it is. It's a blank. We're not passing anything in. Arrow, enter, curly braces, enter. Semicolon at the end. This thing is ready now. And what we're going to do is we already have a method because we're dealing with, the toaster is a DOM element. So it has DOM element methods, and there's a method called remove. So we're going to remove it, and then what are we going to do? We're going to clear our timeout so we don't have any memory issues. I need to get this right here. Okay, timeout, semicolon. Now, what's the next thing we do? We have to pass in the time. Now, when is the toaster done? When is the toaster done with its toasting? Well, we don't know how many orders it's going to get. I mean, we know right now it's limit 3, but what if it's the last array, which it had 2? So we can't just say some number here. We have to say, I'm going to open up some parentheses here because I like to put my math in to keep it contained. Okay, so we're going to say, we're going to give it a delay of 1,000 plus whatever time is. Now, let's go figure out what time is. We're going to just go up here, and we're going to say, let's create it. Constant time is equal to, so we're going to have to iterate over the orders given. So how do we do that? We do it with a for each. That's one way of doing it. We can do it with a map. That's another way of doing it. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. And one of them where we want to sum up a bunch of numbers, because what we want is we want to know the time that was given. And so currently we're just going to make this up as we go, but this method is called reduce, and reduce takes a function, that's the first argument, and the beginning thing, whatever it is. In this case, we would pass in, we want to start with 0. So we want it to count. So to do that, we're just going to go AB arrow just to keep it super simple, but one of them is the accumulator and one of them is the value coming in. We have the arrow. We're just going to do A plus B time. And what's the next thing that we're going to do here? We got this 0. Now that we've added this time property, it doesn't currently exist on our orders. So let's go back into the orders, and we're just going to add a few new properties. Let's go back into there, and we're just going to take something that it's going to be, remember we're taking the setting value times 1,000, so we're just going to do that. So just add time to each one of these objects. So we have time 4,000. This would be value 2 time 2,000. And right here we're going to say time 4,000. And then the same thing here, time 2,000. And value time 4,000. Okay, so each one of them, make sure each one of them have a property of time with in the thousands. So 2,000, 4,000, and so on. Make sure they're all right, and then go ahead and save your orders, and we'll go back to the code.js and finish up what we're doing. We don't want to forget about that. So we're just taking the time that's in there. We're starting with 0, and we're saying, so A is 0 plus the time. So if the first time is 2,000, then A becomes 2,000. And then the reduce fires on the next item to come through, and it's going to be like 2,000 plus B time, which would be, so actually the first one's 4,000, so it would be 0 plus 4,000 is 4,000, and then it would be 4,000 plus 2,000, and then which is 6,000 plus 4,000, now it's 10,000 plus 2,000 is 12,000 plus 4,000 is 16,000. So this accumulates and results in that number being this, and that's what we do. We take that time, which is the sum of the orders time, and we add a little buffer on it for our animation to make sure everything's done before we shut it down. So let's see what we're looking at here. I gotta go back to my notes. Our initialize function, make sure this is all correct. This is looking good. We got clear, remove, timeout, toaster, append, toaster, and orders. Looking good here. So now we need to do what? We need to go back to our load function, and what we're looking at here is we have the output, if you remember this one. So let's get rid of this. We're not going to get rid of it, we're going to move it. So let's move it to the top, because, and we'll capitalize it, okay? Just like we have everything else put on there. So we have output, and just make sure we're going to change it down here, right here. Because we don't need to grab this every time this fires. It would be go get it, go get it, go get it. We only need to get it once. And this is why understanding scope works. It's very important to know this. So this file is going to fire once. This listener is going to fire many times. So let's just get rid of some space here. And we're going to say orders. Now we have the output already. It's already sitting there ready for us on load. And we're coming in here to do the chunked. We know chunked is working, so we don't have to look at that again. Let's get rid of that console log. And let's see. Now we're going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to take this right here, and we're just going to paste it onto orders, because we don't need to console log that. This is going to return an array, and then we're going to loop over it. So let's just get rid of that. As it cleans up this nice. So chunk orders for each order. Now we're getting into that. But what's the next thing we need to do? Well, we're already doing this in our initialize function, so let's get rid of that. And what are we left with? Well, we're left with these curly braces. We don't really need those. We just need the parentheses at the end, and we can inline this. So we can say, okay, what are we doing to the orders? Well, we're going to chunk orders, and then for each order, we're going to pass it into our initialize function, and we're going to pass in each order. So chunk them so they look like from this to this. So that's what we're passing in for blah, 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 blah. That's what we're going to pass in. We're chunking them, and then for each order, really, which is another group of orders, but we're running out of how many words going to be plural here, and we're going to pass them into the initialize function. So this is expecting an array of just orders, not chunked orders. We chunk them, and then we pass them in individually. Now it comes in here and says, okay, well, how much time is this order? Because it could be 3, it could be limit 200 billion, and we need to know how many that is. And then we come in here and create the toaster individually. So I'm just going to get rid of this line here. Make sure that you've made these changes. So this is looking gray because I forgot to change it here. Okay, I thought I changed that on there, but let's see. I think I changed it actually in here before I deleted it. So make sure your output is in here, right? Because this is the global that we're talking about. And I'm just going to make a little bit of room here. So now you can look at this all. Our load function, super simple. Orders listen, chunk them, pass them on. Here is our initialize, so we move the logic out of our for each into another function. We're going to sum up the time from each array of orders, make our toaster-nator, append it to the DOM, call the toast with the orders that are coming in. And one more thing that we have to look at. Do you see it? Let's see, chunked, we did that one. Okay, so I'm just looking at one thing and I can notice right now that something's going to break if we don't change this. So where is it? Where is it? It is what was coming in. If you remember, listen to orders, and then we were doing a for each. And so this is going to have to come down and say right here. Do you see it? This should be matching to our new function that we have coming in here. So let's just put orders, because it's not order anymore. It's order up here where we were using it. If you remember, we copy pasted this, but then we passed it in, and then we called it orders again, because now we're not confined by the S that's being used up here. So we need to change that to orders. So make sure running through here, orders, reduce, we already had that correct. And then document create, append toaster, toaster toast orders, and pause the video and look this over. There's a lot of stuff going on here. You get one letter off, magic isn't going to happen. So let's go ahead and save our work, and we're just going to meander over here. And we're going to open up the console. Yep, we do. Look at that. Man, we got our work cut out for us. Look how many toasters are on here. Let's go ahead and hit save or refresh. We've got the console open. Note our clock ticking and randomly issuing a fixed set of orders. Cool. All right. Did you see what happened there? We're reducing the amount of toasters. So this could be false, 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 in which case we kind of run down a little bit, and then we run back up when we get new orders. This is why we limited 3, and we're keeping it pretty simple, because you could be waiting here for a long time to see what's going to happen. So boom, our toasters are disappearing, and now our toast is pushing our toasters out of the viewport, which isn't a happy situation, is it? So soon our toasters, let's see, will disappear. They did do that. Let's, and then the screen kind of scrolls them out of view. So let's fix that in the browser, and we'll just select the Elements tab in the console, okay, and highlight the view container. Okay, so we got to find the view container. Boop, I highlighted it right there. Unselect justify content center. Okay, justify content center. All right, what happens? Oh, well, we got our we got it back again. So select the toasted div. All right, so let's open this up and let's select the toasted div and add overflow X auto. All right, well, let's see. Overflow X auto. Okay. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. Now we got a scrollable toast, because I mean, we might end up with a billion toasts here. Okay, now we can see our toasters, and the toast scrolls when it becomes too long. We have just one more thing. When there are no toasters, the toasters div collapses. Let's also set a min height so that it will not collapse, and in case it wraps to a second line, can still expand. Okay, so if we went there, can't really stop anything going on right now, but if we went in there and said, it's just going to keep adding them because our system's automated. So we're just trust me on this one. This whole thing would just disappear. Remember how the div, if it doesn't have a width or height, it just collapses. So the toast will take up the entire view, and then it'll push back down again when new toasters come in, and nobody wants that. So let's we're going to set the min height so it won't collapse, and then so we're going to set the toaster's div height to min height of 240 px, and we can't really wait to see if we exhausted all these toasters. Eventually you might see it collapse. I don't know how long that might take before we get back down to zero, because it's random on here. So let's just go back and we'll make our changes, and we'll set our min heights that we need to, and we can see what's going on. So let's go to our style CSS and add our changes. So don't worry about the changes we made here. We have them all written down, and we'll get to them. So here's the style CSS. Remember, our view container is at the top because it's one of those beginning style that we already begin with. And if you remember, we just need to delete this one. Okay, justify content is gone. And then we need to go down to toasted. So I'm just going to do a find toasted. There's the find toasted. And what we need to do is, I'm just going to put it down here. It's an overflow X auto. So if it expands past the box, it'll automatically add a scroll bar or scrollable. And then our toasters, let's see, we need a min height. So let's go in here and say min height of 240 px. Okay, so let's save our work. Okay, and refresh the browser. So let's go back over here, and we're going to just refresh the browser. And there they go. Now we're going to watch these things go, see if we get our scroll, and see if these things disappear or get scrunched. Toast, 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 toast. You can see if you thought of these toast as pixels, it's just really large pixels. I wonder what we could draw inside of here. So let's see, we're almost there. I haven't seen 0 toasters yet. Oh, we're almost there. See if we got, nope. But we are expanded past. So let's see, we got our scroll bar. So that's cool. So they're appending to the bottom. We're not squishing our toasters. Those are remaining there. Oh, we did. And that didn't squish. So that's because we had the min height set on there, which we didn't get to see before. So we got a scroll. We're not squishies. So what else would we like to do? Because we are in command of this application, and we can do whatever we want. So it would be nice if the toasters fade in and out, maybe a pause before starting orders, so they kind of just come in so kind of harshly. So it would be nice to know how many orders each toaster has allocated and how many orders have completed. The toast should append at the top, not the bottom, right? I want to see them up here. I don't want to see them down here. So The toast should also animate in, so they're kind of harshly just popping in. Maybe a total count of toasted orders as well. That'd be nice, like a little dashboard. And we also need to randomize the amount of orders coming in as we are still using a fixed list, right? We still have our fixed list of 5 items again and again. So lots of fun work ahead. Great job, everyone. We have a great toaster-nator machine working for us. It's almost like we could make toast for the entire world. If you've enjoyed this video, click like and then subscribe buttons to get notifications of new content. Thank you for exploring programming with me, and I'll see you in the next video.